Hi everyone. For 11-7, we're going to be adding on to what we did last week with simplifying radical expressions, and today and tomorrow we'll be adding and subtracting radical expressions. I hope that you can see the connection to combining like terms with this adding and subtracting radical expressions. So first things first, we just need to look at some different examples of what things would be considered like radicals and which things would be not like radicals. Like radicals have to have the exact same expression and the same radicand. So if we look at a few examples, our first example of a like radical, this 2 times the square root of 5 and 4 times the square root of 5, they are alike because they both have a 5 underneath the square root sign. For the 6 and the square root of x and the negative 2 times the square root of x, same thing. Same information underneath the radical sign. And again, for 3 times the square root of 4t and the square root of 4t, same number under the radical sign. For our unlike radicals, you'll notice in the first example that 2 and the square root of 15 can't be the same because one has a radical sign and one does not. This middle one gets a little bit tricky because they look a little bit the same, but if you notice in the first one, it's just the x that's under the square root sign, and in the second one, both the 6 and x are underneath that radical sign. So that means that they are not the same. And the last one, don't get fooled around by numbers that have been rearranged. In this last example, first it's the square root of 2, and then it's the square root of 3, making them not like radicals. So when we go through and we try to add or subtract any radicals, we need to make sure that they have the same number underneath the square root sign in order to be able to combine them. And that's just like terms. So 9 times the square root of 3 minus 4 times the square root of 3, they both have the same number underneath the square root sign, and 9 minus 4 is 5. So the final answer would be 5 times the square root of 3, or we could say 5 radical 3. For the next example, the same thing happens. They both have that radical 3. 8 minus 5 is 3. So it's 3 radical 3. Same thing on the next example. 5 minus 6 is negative 1. So we would write it negative 1 times the square root of 7. Or a better way would just be negative and then the radical 7. Remember, mathematicians are lazy and we don't want to put extra things that we don't need. The next example down, we've got just the square root of m minus 7 times the square root of m. Now, that might get confusing to you, but remember, in math, we have hidden number 1s in front of all of our variables, and that's just the same here. So 1 minus 7 is negative 6. So it's negative 6 radical m. This example, some of you might even be looking at it and thinking, can I do that? And the answer is no, you cannot. We cannot add together something that has the square root of x under, or the radical x and a radical y. So we would have this one really be already simplified. For our next example, it's as simple as doing 4 plus 4, which is 8. So 8 times the square root of n. Oops, sorry about that, guys. And then our final example looks very tricky because we have so many different pieces with it. If we look at this expression, the like terms, if we want to consider it that way, would be anything that has the radical 5s. So this radical 2s is not going to be able to be combined with anything that has a 5s underneath it. So again, same thing as we talked about. Remember, there is that hidden number 1 that could be in front of a negative sign. So really we've got negative 1 plus 9. Negative 1 plus 9 is 8. And then we have times the square root of 5s. And then we just can't forget about the fact that we have the square root of 2s. Since the 8 is positive, we could write it as the square root of 2s plus 8 times the square root of 5s, or we could flip-flop it around and have it written the other direction. Sorry about the handwriting. I'm doing this morning without a stylus. All right, you'll see on this page what our homework assignment is going to be. The book assignment is rather short because we only know one portion of how to add or subtract these radical expressions. The other thing I want to point out, this packet or this worksheet is due tomorrow, and it's going to help us review because you have a quiz tomorrow. All right, I hope everything makes sense, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.